tomorrow is the 5-year anniversary of Dad Awesome. So we started the ministry Dad Awesome 5 years ago. It was January 22nd of 2018. Spent a year within primarily Substance Church, resourcing the dads of our church with a podcast, with small groups curriculum, a daily text message. I was standing in a worship service, and the idea kind of jumped into my heart. It's partially because I'm friends with guys who have done venture rides in the past, but this idea of we could reach, there's men in our church that are not engaging in intentional fatherhood resources because of various reasons. But what if we invited them to a mission instead of invited them to help learn about being an intentional dad? What if we invited them and activated them to a mission of helping the fatherless? So that's what led to this first team. Although this picture, I think, this is the 27 of us from year one. This picture, there's another one, Tim grinning up front, Tyler. Here we go, year two. Year two, 57 guys said yes to riding. And year one, we raised $17,000 for the fatherless. Year two, we raised $103,000 for local and global partners who are directly serving the fatherless. Year two, here's another one from year two. Year three, in year two, we had to switch dates from June to August because of rescheduling, because of COVID restrictions. This was year three, and this was the year Mark Batterson flew into town. This is the first year we partnered with River Valley Church. Eli, you're on the call today. I didn't do side-by-side photos because you guys started this year. So that Westbridge Church ran parallel to us with like 10 guys. And then this year they had like 25 guys. Last year they had like 48. So I apologize, Eli. I'm not giving the full picture of what happened that same date in August. But this was year three. We raised $290,000 this year for the fatherless. And this year, year three, we added a few other cities. So we added, this was Arizona. I thought I had the other cities in here. Maybe they're out of order. We had Colorado this year. We had Philadelphia and New York, in addition to Minneapolis. So this was our Arizona team, although we got a few of you guys from Minnesota that flew down and joined this year. And then the reason for this photo, we hopped in an RV and hit the road for this year. So this is my crew who traveled with me to do all those rides that year. I flew to New York, but all the other ones, they came with me. And then I think this one is the finish line for this year. This would be year four. We raised just shy of $280,000 this last year. And this is our running team from a year and a half ago. We tried a running event where we collectively ran 100 miles. This was our triathlon team at an Olympic triathlon last year. This is a sprint triathlon team, Father's Day weekend at the Lake Minnetonka Triathlon. And then this is where I'm going to kind of land us today, is showing one of our teams at the finish line. So that I just thought it'd be fun to take a little walk down where have we been? None of us saw this with the first 27 dudes the first year. We almost canceled year two. None of us saw this going where it's gone, how it's grown. I mean, there's been, I think I had more photos that I didn't show you. There's a picture of a ride that happened in Spain this year, a ride that happened in Mexico. I did cut the slideshow short. That's all right. There is, again, I mentioned the Spartan that's coming soon. Collectively, I did the math this evening. Over the 4 years, we've had the privilege of, it's been over 600, it's like 640. Now, the trick is like Grayson counts 4 times in that number. Actually 5 times, because he rode in Arizona. So it's not unique. It's not over 600 that have, total dudes, but that's how many people have participated. It's like 640 people have participated. Thanks for the thumbs up, Grayson. And we've raised $685,000 for the fatherless over the last 4 years. So I share that not to be like, look at us, look what we did, or look what I did. I think it's important to kind of pause. And because I'm a little bit reminiscent right now, because tomorrow, like I said, is the 5-year anniversary of the podcast, the side of the ministry. There's 2 sides, intentional fatherhood side and then activate men to help the fatherless side. I describe it as the upstream, downstream. The upstream being intentional fatherhood work that we're doing with Dad Awesome. Downstream is kids who don't have a dad in their life that will, Lord willing, because of our partners, grow up to experience the love of God and be dads, be moms, be parents that change the course for the next generation. So that's the work we're doing. Dad Awesome is infused into what we do at Fathers for the Fatherless, but I really do see them as two sides to the mission. The reason we're on right now, though, is to talk about year 5. Year 5. Nod your head if you're like, you understood that we were talking about this summer in Minnesota. Okay, yes. So that's what we're talking about today, is what is going on. What is the plan for the 5th year of this mission? The plan is that we're not going to back down and wrap this thing down and call it good after 4 years. I don't think anyone expected that, but we're not going to hold off and say, well, that was fun, let's go put our energy somewhere else. We totally know that our alumni and the amazing people who've been a part of the team are called to different missions and different seasons, different assignments. So there's no expectation that you guys, in fact, a few of you have already reached to me and said, hey, I've loved being a part of this. I'm not going to ride this next summer, but how can I help in other ways? Or, man, like, I'd love to make some introductions, or like, hey, can I help you fundraise and get some sponsors? Or, I mean, that's cool. Like, I never expect that my friends listen to the Dad Awesome podcast. And I never expect that you guys continue to say yes to riding 100 miles. Not at all. But I'm thankful that you have, and I'm thankful that you're open to at least hearing the vision this call. So the part of the purpose of this call is to recruit a team that will help build this mission forward. But it might not be you. It might be someone you know from your team last year who rode with you that says, we want in. So like Joe Miller's on this call from River Valley. He's helped over the last 2 years in a very central lead team capacity. Their lead team is going to look a little different this next year, but they're still in for the mission. Eli's on this call. He has orbited in a little bit of a different crew of men, because he hasn't been with us through all of the rides, training rides, some of the resourcing of the Twin Cities ride, because they have a church who is just, I mentioned earlier, Westbridge Church has seen this thing just explosively grow, double or 2.5 times each year. And Eli, can you come off mute and tell me, do you remember roughly how much you raised those 2 years, the 3 years? Do you know the number between the 3 years?
Yeah, first year we had 9 guys, and I think it's like 15 grand. Second year was 24 guys. I think it was somewhere around 40, maybe high 30. And then last year we had 43 guys, and we were 65, something like that, 65,000. So bigger and better, bigger and better.
I mean, it's been incredible. And the testimony stories out of your church alone. And it's been an honor to steer on and do very little work and see a lot of impact. I mean, and we have not seen that model cloned to other churches yet, of churches that just say, we want it, we'll support it, we'll build a leadership team, we'll pick our course, we'll come around this mission as in that. Like, we've seen less churches do that and more collect cities who have a few churches connected, but I kind of carry the weight of leadership in the other cities we've expanded into. And then the Twin Cities, we've seen lots of growth, but lots of direct leadership from a team that I lead. And that's been, that's what we're still prayerfully saying, what does a citywide ride look like? And what does churches who take ownership? But it's always amazing when churches are like, I'll go after it. So if any of you guys hear of churches that are like, hey, can we just do our own version? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. There's a lot of amazing sides to that. So let's see, where was I? So that is history. And now we're looking into, okay, I mentioned building the lead team. I'll talk about what that team's going to do in 2 phases. But we are dialed in, and we're excited about year 5 and taking this mission not only to more men, more churches, but also experiencing what might feel like the biggest change up that we've done yet with Fathers for the Fatherless. And we decided prayerfully, it's actually been more prayer than originally. I decided, we made the decision, and then there's been months of, the reason we have an open registration is there's been more extended prayer and conversations before me getting on this call saying we have a plan. We hold all of our plans like this. We have a plan. We're waiting for one last step with the Tour de Tonka to fully open registrations, and that's why we haven't opened them yet. But let me explain the plan. The plan is to take the mission public year 5. And picture that last picture I showed you on the slideshow showed like 9 dudes as a ride team. And this, I believe, the main secret sauce, this what's special about Fathers for the Fatherless, is what exists when you ride in a team of men collected around the exact same mission, men who know each other's names. I still think that is the big is amazing. I love the big and the cheering, a ripple effect of now you have other people's families cheer for you because they're out there cheering for their, like having 14 ride teams all together was amazing. Eli having 5 ride teams all together is amazing. But what makes Fathers for the Fatherless special is the 8 or 9 guys who know each other's name, who care for each other, who help change the tires when they go flat together, who pray for each other, who encourage each other to make it to 100 together, who fundraise together, who that is what differentiates, not the humongous look at what we have 160 people in one room. We've decided to take the mission public this year in joining Tour de Tonka. Tour de Tonka, some of you guys have ridden in the past, is a 2,500 person cycling event. So we've never taken our ride and at scale and said we're joining a public event. I rode an event in Oceanside, California. Some of you guys rode in Cocoa Beach, Florida this last year. There's been some public events that guys have shown up to, but we have not taken and said, let's take our largest ride in the country and take it public. Let me just imagine this out with you guys for a moment before we get into questions. The plan is, and it's not a forever plan, but the plan is to do a Friday night gathering of our team. So there's still a moment to bring our team together, to still have our team organized in ride teams with ride captains, but to show up on Saturday morning, August 5th. They're going to give us a separate bullpen area for our 300 to 400 guys to actually stage in. And then for us to head out and ride teams along with all the Century riders, which could be another 600, could be 1,000 people riding the Century. But we will ride amongst thousands, probably 10,000 if you include the people cheering. We'll take the mission from a place of a private ride that our friends and family know about and our host churches who host our restroom stops to a ride that I'm praying the entire Twin Cities takes notice. The Tour de Tonka, the West Metro specifically, but the Twin Cities and the action, triathlon, cycling, running, the community of athletes that do these types of Tour de Tonka is a very well represented. That the broader city says, what is this team up to? The church is doing something special. And can you believe the money they raised to help the fatherless? And I want to hear more about this mission. So that is the big, it's not an announcement because many of you guys knew this was coming, but the change up this year is we're going after the same mission. Last year, the change up was we invited all men, not just dads. This year, same mission, 18 and older men that are part of the church, men who aren't, men who are single, men who are married, men who are dads, men who aren't. Like we're saying, come ride, be a part of this mission. What I saw at the triathlon last year, the triathlon teams, is people were cheering me down, not knowing who I was because they recognized the jersey. They knew someone who was a part of this mission. And they're like, what? And they cheered for me because they had some familiarity with the mission. And then lots of people said, tell me more about what you're up to. And so we saw it in a small sliver with 16 guys at a triathlon and then 5 of us at another triathlon. And we're prayerful that we're not going to lose the special that we've experienced, but we don't know. We don't know. At some of that moment at 6 a.m., praying over one another and sending us out for one very clear mission is it's gonna look a little bit different in how it plays out. Some of the volunteers know exactly the heartbeat of the mission. Now we're gonna have to be sharing the heartbeat of the mission as we go because some people are gonna have never heard of this mission when we roll up to the rest stops. I am gonna flank our team with volunteers who show up at the rest stops just to encourage us. So there will be a presence of Fathers and Fatherless volunteers, even though Tour de Tonka is not asking me to recruit volunteers. So there's still going to be an arm of volunteerism that day. So that's the big, that's the game plan. Now, I mentioned we haven't opened registrations yet. Open Door Church actually has held the date of August 4th, Friday night, to do our team gathering. They're willing to. We might find a closer location, but that they've held that. They've actually held the date August 5th, Saturday morning, in case we decide to move away from Tour de Tonka to do our own private ride. They're holding the date for us in case something with just this process. Tour de Tonka is excited, but they're a school district and they're so slow to give me some answers. So it's not like they won't welcome us, but I'm trying to get a finish line tent that's just ours. I'm trying to get the registration price point to come a little lower. I'm trying to get a few special, our own packet pickup Friday night. I'm working on a few points and they just are. It's amazing how slow that process. But they keep coming back with emails. I'm so sorry. We want you guys to join us, but we won't have an answer until February 1st. Like it's hilarious. So I have a backup plan with Open Door, but the plan is we're taking this thing public, so I'm not sharing that broadly. And like last year, we didn't even know where this thing was going to be hosted until I think June is when we finally told everybody this is where the route is, this is where the ride is. So we're way ahead of last year, but it's a change up, same price point as last year. So the fact that we can pull it off, same price point within $5 of last year with a public ride is just, I'm grateful. The price point's not as expensive as some other rides around the country with Tour de Tonka. So
I'll
go
share
ahead.
some feedback, Jeff. That's okay.
Yeah, please.
I'll use your line where you say, I'll go first. I mean, we are called as Christ followers to make disciples of all nations. And I think it is right to rip the Band-Aid off and go to a public event and show them that we are Christian men that believe in community and we're here to change the world. So I think I applaud you for doing it because this is what we need. We need to show them there's 130, 200 guys here that are faith followers and we're doing this for a cause. So I can't see any negatives because this is what the Lord calls us to do, is to step out, go first, be a bit uncomfortable. And as we're talking to other riders, they'll be asking, why is there so many of you? And we'll be sharing our mission and gospel with them as to why we're doing it. So hearts are going to be, I'm sure, yes, and they're curious as to who is this group of 200 guys that are cycling this. Yeah.
Thank you. And just a quick add to that, one thing we will give up is if they decide to rain the thing out, which has happened 2 out of the last 4 years. Tour de Tonka has rained out 2 out of the last 4 years. Our mission goes beyond a date. So our mission, if we ever had a rain out, our teams of men within a week or two of that ride will ride as teams of men for the same mission, the same cause. Like we're not going to be like, we don't have a cancel. Like our culture is not like as a team, if it doesn't happen, it's just worthless. We're riding and we fundraise and we've told guys we're riding. So that there's not actually a huge risk on that side. A few people brought that up of just like, well, we would ride in the sprinkling rain and finish, or the pouring rain. If it's not lightning, we would pause and I just want to add that we lose control of those kind of decisions but at the same time we gain their experience, decades and decades of police relationships and safety, and we gain a lot on the event side. Yeah. So keep going. Who else has something to add?
I was just gonna say I really like the focus on teams. I just think of like training rides, and even during the ride itself, like that was probably some of the most impactful times. I mean, I love the training rides with like 30, 40 dudes because it gives us opportunities to meet other people. And I love it. And I love it when some of the churches come together and like I get to ride with people I've never met, and it's awesome. But there's also something about doing it with a group. And I think, and I don't like what you talked about earlier today with me and that concept of, pulling together teams at different churches or different campuses or whatever. It helps share that ownership too.
Mm-hmm.
And where it's not like this, there's like 5 people trying to manage 400. It's really just like, hey, we're giving you ownership to build a team and do this with us. And part of doing it, I think, with the Tour de Tonka gives a little bit of that, like there's structure there. So you basically like build a team, train together and show up. Like it feels like it's less of a commitment, even though it's not really less, but it feels like less work because there's more community around it, you know, and I'm already
Mhm.
thinking like, oh, I know who I'm going to talk to for my team, you know, and then the somewhat of a challenge with that would be like, okay, if there's one rider that's coming randomly in, you know, where do we place them? Obviously we can make that inclusive and, you know, talking to team captains or whatever about that. But I really like that idea of like focusing on the team and even in the messaging, like, hey, like, let's build a team together, like sign up your team here, and even like make it a team based like
Mm.
sign up or something just to really emphasize that. And even when it comes to like the training rides and stuff, it's like, hey, when is your team going to train? Not that you have to do it that way, but I just think there's a lot of power in that. And that's one of the reasons that, you know, that I keep coming back is like, I want to ride with the same guys. And I already got people telling me like, hey, when's the next ride? Like, what are we doing? So I think that's really cool.
First thing is I like the visibility, being out in the community with a unified team and a message, opportunities for evangelism, opportunities for a lot of things that I think we haven't been able to leverage at all, doing it just on our own, so to speak. And then I also like using somebody else's resources, leveraging a ride that somebody spent hours and hours and hours to plan, that we can just kind of leverage off of that and possibly use all those volunteer resources in some other positive way. To me makes, you know, a whole lot of sense. So I only see opportunities for new growth and you know, kind of keeping the basis for what we were. You know, to me, what's changed in the last couple of years, you know, the first year the ride was the thing. It was kind of the only thing. Now, these last couple of years, all these training rides have added a whole nother, you know, part of this thing that I think is, so to me, whatever we do on that day is great. It's the fundraising, it's visible,
Mhm.
but you know, that's only a part of this whole, what this whole thing has become. And I don't see that it detracts, you know, hearing about it for the first time, I don't see that it detracts from my excitement level to be part of it. So
I think it's a really cool thing, and I'm all for it. I just had a couple questions on like logistics. So is Venture still a part of it?
Venture is not only still a part of it, but we, for year 5, decided to increase the percentage given globally, just to make a stronger push global. We're going to see all the numbers go up this year, but and it's not like we don't have to overly communicate it's a change up, but I want you guys as the lead team to know that this year it'll be 75% will go global through Venture, 25% to local. Part of that is we've blown away our local orgs with the amount, you know, $25,000, $38,000 checks, like 4 different orgs, like locally. And so they're like blown away and not necessarily in need of, like, not that they're not in need, but they can't necessarily scale like our partners globally can, the resources. So we did make that shift. So good question. What's your next one, brother?
Is there still going to be, and this is maybe a Tour de Tonka thing, I guess I'm not too familiar with them, but is there going to be like support vehicles, or how will that, do you know how that will work for like if somebody has to drop, things like that, because it's a much larger ride, so I don't imagine having vehicles follow us the whole time.
Yes, we kind of
I'm just
phased out of
curious.
the follow vehicles this last year for the ride, and it showed that by having roaming available, we have to still weigh that out, like how, and the guys who have ridden can probably answer this. They have SAG support vehicles that can help with mechanical things, but it's not like they have a bus just ready to pick people up who can't make it. So that you kind of have to, as a ride team, know that you've got a few family members that if there was, or someone's struggling in the train, we're going to kind of, like you would have to do at any other ride. You're not going to have quite the level that we've had in past years of pickup. It's pretty amazing though, the change last year, we didn't have that. Like we dropped people, like we kept people until they really hit a wall before one of our vehicles came to pick people up. And we just had very few, which we're grateful. I should jump to pace for a moment. The registration form will have 3 pace options this year. And this complicates things, but we can do it because of the partnership with Tour de Tonka. There'll be an 18 to 20 mile an hour pace group. There will be a 16 to 17 mile an hour, and there'll be a 14 to 15 mile an hour pace group. So in some ways, we'll really widen the people, those serious cyclists who haven't given us a look because they're not interested, because they're really pushing those faster speeds like Gary, Haig. Uh, those guys now have an option. And the guys who are really like, I would do it, but I can't. We know not everyone's like Roger and just crank after, what are you, 52 years old, Roger? Right, you're a little older than 50. Not many guys can crank at the higher speeds like he can. And so we can maybe have more guys that are in the grandpa season, which would be amazing because of the slower speed. So it complicates, though, when you have a church like, well, I'll use Roger's example, Berean. They rally 5 to 10 guys, but they're in 3 different pace groups. It does complicate some things to have multiple pace groups, and they may let's choose to ride the slower and be together this first year. And that's great. So there's still, it'll add a complication layer, but not as much as it would if we owned the ride, because we're doing it through Tour de Tonka. It's not going to complicate it as much, and it really has an upside. So do you have a third question?
When we register, are we actually registering for Tour de Tonka then? Or are we still registering through Fathers for the Fatherless?
So I'm grateful.
I'm just curious how that works.
Yeah, we'll bulk register. So they just register on F4F.bike, and we'll bulk register the guys. Where our triathlon team had to register twice. They have to register for the triathlon and then come over and register with us to get their kits. It's just like last year. They'll register one time with us.
Is this still a Century ride?
We're only offering the Century ride, even though Tour de Tonka has other options. We're only offering the Century for our ride. Yes.
And just I mean, I'm all for it. I think it sounds like a great idea, and I think you could give some thought to this, Jeff. You're very creative, and the thing that strikes me is what would be the ethos of our teams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think about Chick-fil-A. When you go through there, everybody says my pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
My pleasure. Are there some simple ways that every guy on the team somehow demonstrates a grace and a joy, and we're going to bump into people, or is there going to be a repair guy on every team, and we're going to stop and help
Other
be
people.
good. I mean, give some thought to that. I don't want to drill down on it now, but I think otherwise it's, our fellowship will become insulated.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get our team across the finish line, but we won't have had the impact with the others that we could have. So
thank you. And culture has been a little bit not accidental. Like, you guys know, there's been in Tyler Siebel's brought a lot of that real purposeful to our ride captains. So it's not accidental, but we have not had to articulate and train culture like we need to this year. So you're really calling it out. You're right on, Roger. And when I rode the Century out in California, it's amazing. People are looking for community. So solo riders, if we are welcoming, will join us. They'll join our pods. Like, they truly will, if we're nice and we welcome them to join. So, which we will be. So it's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out. And a bunch of our pictures might be a scattering of, there's always the core of 6 to 8 of our guys, but look at that. There's 4 others riding their pod with them. And so that's just an example of kind of that join us mentality. Ride with us. Like, you're one of us because you latched on. So anyways, that more to come on that. But yes, that will be purposeful. And I maybe that leads to, okay, let me just share the vision, how we're going to get there. Unless, is there any logistical things that are just like glaring that you're like, hey, answer this first before I take us into how we're going to get there? Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
So I'm just having a hard time envisioning the team aspect. So is it going to be the same as last year, as far as we'll just have different pods, ride captains, and then we just send people out staggered and we stick together, no drop, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it'll look very similar to this last year in that you stick together. Now we had a couple fail moments of people that did get dropped left on the side of the road, but most our teams were mostly trained in on you stick together, you change a tire. If someone gets hurt, you stay with them, you wait till another vehicle's there to grab them. Yes, that no drop mentality. It's not a ping pong where, well, we're in the 18-mile-an-hour groups, they'll just get scooped up by somebody else when they come along. It's not that free solo concept. It is a team ride, and there could be some purposeful communication with like, hey, we're actually going to drop them to a support person or volunteer or rest stop, and they are going to join into a slower group because they can't keep up with the 18 to 20, but not a casual approach to it, a very purposeful. The goal would be to not be seen riding alone. Like the Tour de Tonka, 5,000 plus people cheering for these guys. Do not see a fathers for the fatherless person ever outside of their. It's like I mean, I never served in the military, but they're strong. They stick together. You don't see them solo out there fighting, like, right? So that's the concept.
Cool.
I think that's an important point to make. You know, we saw stuff last year that you know, you get caught up in the ride being, you know, at a certain pace, and if a guy falls off the back, they just let him go. And we saw some of that, as you know, and we certainly need to call it out, you know, before the ride. This is who we are, and this is what we do.
Yep.
Good point.
And yeah, I think there will be a try before people register to give that clarity, but there's also I want to be a little more clear that we welcome people that are not willing to say yes into this mission to ride wearing something else that day. They went off the team. This is who we are. Right? So yeah, that's the level of passion I have for that level of culture and team. And it's
and I
who
think,
we
Jeff,
are.
On that Friday evening, if we go to the church of Open Door again, you know, you can really reaffirm. I mean, I'm not sure who spoke then, was it Greg? But it is right. I mean, it's a ride, it's not a race. So I guess moving on to Tour de Tonka, people might get the mentality, but we're racing. You know, I think the community is the strength. This is a ride, group ride, not a race. So leave out and reaffirm that.
Yeah. So in past years, I have thought, well, I have a friend at this church. I'm gonna do a series of Zoom calls, meetings, coffees, Chipotle burrito lunches, and try to get 40 people from that church to say yes. And it's been a lot of work to try to bring partners on board. And I've really seen this a different approach this year, to instead of look to a few churches to get a lot of guys, seeing this 5-year, let's find 50 churches. We had 27 churches represented last year. Let's get 50 churches represented this year in the Fathers for the Fatherless Twin Cities ride. I'm counting the state. So Eli and the crew at Westbridge is one of the 50. Can we get 50 rocking and rolling with 5 guys from each church? Now, if you're a church that's ridden in the past, Substance Church, River Valley, 5 new guys. Like, so it's really, what I'm trying to do is the bar comes way down. So if you're at a church that you're the only guy right now, can we add 1 guy per month over the next 5 months? Like, it's that kind of, like, it's not a huge lift. If you have a friend at another church, you recruit them in, and we help give them. So we're really looking at personal invites, but can we look at churches bringing 5 guys to the ride? That is how this thing grows, way more than saying alumni each bring 1 friend. Now, of course, some churches are going to end up at 3 or 4 and not hit 5, and we'll pair them together, which is great. Some are going to have different pace groups, and it's going to get complicated. That's okay. But if we, by having 5 guys from a church, let's use a church that's nearby that I know some people, that's a Passion Church up in Maple Grove. I don't think we had anyone on the team from that church last year, but like, one of us probably in the call today knows somebody. I mean, I know somebody at that church. Like, it just changes the perspective of, like, we list and we have a team of ambassadors who say, I'm going to help invite some new churches, and we're going to give them the tools to get 5 guys. And so that is our thinking, is far less rally for bigger numbers at Emmanuel or Substance or River Valley or like other churches. Instead, it's like, let's just add another church and help them get 5. Let's add another church and help them get 5. Because that is where we believe the life change happens, is when there's some guys that now when they walk into church, a few of you on the call have told me this, when you walk into church now, your experience is different than it was 5 years ago before Fathers to the Fatherless, because you see a dozen, 3, 2 dozen, you see other men who had a shared experience that you did, that you know more of their story. You changed a tire together. You did a hard thing together. You care about the same mission. You are more intentional in the way you live because you had that shared. So that's what's missing from about 10 of those 27 churches. Only had one person represented last year. They didn't get any of that benefit to the brotherhood side and the community side, or far less, because they didn't have anyone a part of their church community they worshiped with that was riding with them. So that is the big mission. Last year we had 3 lead teams. The year before that and the year before that, we just had one leadership team, about 6 or 7 guys who said, well, we're going to help make this thing happen. And that came together, prayed in the mission, helped get fund, helped get sponsors, helped get buy the snacks, helped. There's a team. It was one singular team the first few years. It was 3 teams last year. The 3 teams last year were a multiplication team, a ride captain team, and an event team. And it didn't really work last year. The ride captain team worked, but the other teams, it felt like we floundered a little bit. Like it just didn't quite catch as far as our like momentum. So I'm restructuring this year to just 2 simple teams, and anyone can choose to be on both teams. There's a ride captain team that looks very similar to last year. You're going to provide leadership to a ride team of 8 to 10 guys. So that team will exist just like last year. It really kicks in June, July, August is when the majority of that team, a little bit of May. The ambassador team is simply owners who want to see this thing reach more churches, who are going to be inviting, setting up coffees, making some introductions. I already have a church that said, yeah, let's hop on a Zoom call, let's record it, and I'll send it to all my guys. So like we're using that tool because I'm not in town, but many of you can share the story as well as I can. So the ambassadors are just going to be, hey, I want to take ownership over the next few months. And this is where I get a little bit passionate, so forgive me. I can't think of another mission of men that call it 3 months, the next 3 months, you could invest 1 hour a week for the next 3 months, and potentially your work could lead to tens of thousands of dollars given to the fatherless. Just an hour a week for 3 to 4 months of just intentional emails, text, coffee meetings. Like it's crazy. It really is crazy, because if like 10 of you guys join this ambassador team, I'm pretty sure the impact of each of your work, each of your invites, and the ripple effect of this invite leading to that Zoom call, leading to this email from the men's ministry, led to 7 guys signing up. And those 7 guys, our average is still $1,100 per guy. So that's $8,000 for the fatherless because of you set up one Zoom call. I mean, I haven't had many people invite me into a mission that like I could put a few hours in and turn the needle like that as far as impact to the fatherless. So much less the other side of impact, which still I believe is greater, the brotherhood side of impact. But who's asking me to pick a side, right? So that's me getting a little bit passionate about why I would love for you guys, and let's get more people to take ownership of the ambassador side of like, hey, we're going to grow this thing. And it's I don't have a list of bullet points. You have to agree to these things, but I'm looking for in my follow-up email a yes. Keep me in the loop on what it looks like to be an ambassador. I want to help on that side of recruiting more people. And then we'll have another wave for the ride captain. So that's it. I mean, that's the vision. And those are the 2 invites: is help us build this thing. Ambassador, year 5, let's get over 300. And that's through 50 churches. Let's get 50 churches. And then part 2 is ride captain leadership. I'm going to help provide leadership the day of and in training rides. And I'm going to encourage my guys to fundraise. I mean, Tyler kept it pretty simple. It wasn't a huge heavy lift to be a ride captain. Eli, I'm going to tap you since you just chimed in. Can you pray over this vision and over the guys on this call? I believe it's not just an exporting of like help others. I believe God wants to do something in us as we step into this. So yeah, can you pray over us before I let you go?
Father, thank you for this group of men who are helping other men just join this mission of helping the fatherless. And we know that touches all of our hearts. It touches your heart. And we pray that this year we continue to grow and we continue to touch families and children who need that presence of a father, who need food, who need that figure. And man, we pray that the logistics come into line. We'll start praying now for safety through all this stuff. Accidents can happen, but we just pray for your protection. We pray that you guide our steps moving forward, so we are making the right moves to influence the most people and affect the most families and children. And we just thank you for that. We thank you for what you've done. We thank you for Jeff going leading on this wild, crazy vision that has grown into just something awesome and beautiful and powerful. And so we pray for wisdom for him. For those of us who are also part of leadership teams, we pray for us to move in the right direction. And we thank you for that in advance. Amen.